Hi folks, my name is Kevin Dunn and welcome to Agency Unfiltered, a bi-weekly web series and podcast that interviews agency owners around agency operations, growth, and scale. Nobody knows how to scale agencies better than those that are already doing it, and they're happy to share an unfiltered look into what has worked and what hasn't. Joining us today is Tyler Pigott, Principal and Chief Growth Officer of Lone Fir Creative. In 2017, his team was seeing tremendous success, growing 10x with growth in team size, revenue, and profit. But in early 2019, they lost half of their revenue in a 30-day period. Tyler talks to us about the lessons learned and the actions he took to recover his agency in this time of crisis around his sales process, his tech stack, and his hiring process. Agency Unfiltered starts right now. Tyler, welcome to Agency Unfiltered. We're psyched to have you here.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
I think this is going to be a great episode at your expense because you've had a ton of different learnings and,
Sure.
and a unique struggle that you had to overcome. And so excited to unpack that.
Cool.
But before I get to my question asking, just for everyone, like just set the table. What happened with Lone Fir and kind of set the stage for us.
Totally. Well, I would say kind of early on, so we grew too fast. Like we brought in clients too fast, I should say.
Okay.
And so we essentially 10x'd from January 2017 to January 2018. As far as like bottom line, books, revenue, we 10x what we're at, which is great. Mm-hmm. We started small, so numbers weren't massive for where we were at, but we had to figure out like, hey man, how are we going to like keep up with this? Like, how are we going to execute these services? And so, that kind of got us to January 2018. And then really probably from, beginning of February till middle of March, we lost half of our agency revenue. Jeez. So it was like all the retainer clients. We still had stuff coming in, but like it was like 5 phone calls from clients like within a 30-day period that were like, hey, we either got acquired, so they don't need us anymore. We're not going to renew our contract. We want to break our contract. We hired someone internally. So it wasn't all stuff that it was like, hey, you guys suck. Like, you guys are really bad at this.
It wasn't like performance-based.
Yeah, not all of it. Yeah. Some of them, it was like, man, we could have done a better job. And obviously you can always improve and stuff. And so that was a 30-day window of like, oh crap.
Right.
Can I say crap? I can say crap. Okay.
Oh crap. Only crap. That's where
totally.
we draw the line on Agency Unfiltered. Yeah.
Totally. So anyway, I was like, oh man, what are we going to do? This is a little bit of a disaster because at that point we were, and I'll get into some of this, I'm sure, in some of your questions, but at that point we were like subcontracting out a lot of the services. We had one other employee, myself, and then a host or a pool of 1099 contractors, that are executing it. And so some of that was easier to kind of phase out of, and not because you weren't like on the hook for a huge payroll or anything, which was great and saved us, honestly, but was also some of our pitfall. So that was kind of the disaster of the beginning of 2018, which at this recording time was not that long ago.
Right, yeah, honestly.
I remember it pretty well.
Yeah. Like, I still wake up in cold sweats thinking about it.
Yeah, I lost a lot of sleep.
I can imagine.
Yeah.
30-day window, everything comes crashing down, half of your revenue.
Yeah.
What's the attack plan?
It was important to not just like think about it a whole lot and kind of go, okay, what do we do now? Which was a lot more of like more than I would like reflecting on it, was a lot more of like, okay, let's hit the drawing board. Like, how are we going to do this again? And what do we do to change that? And what did we learn from that? And what did we, what are like the red flags that popped up that I can talk to now after we've kind of digested and processed it? But in that moment, I wouldn't have known, So a lot of it was like, okay, so maybe those clients weren't the right fit in the first place. And so, what is that attached to? Probably your sales process, that cycle, and prospecting and finding new clients and stuff, and like, where does that fit? So that was like part one, of like, where does that work? And then the second aspect of it, it's like the execution of the services. How are we doing those, and were we doing them the most efficiently or effectively for us, and like, and how we work with clients? And looking back on it, no, we weren't.
Interesting.
And how we could have fixed that.
So let's focus on the sales piece first. So I don't want to say like Black Monday, Black January. Is that when it was? Or whatever the 30-day, the 30-day window, whatever it was.
February 25th to March 26th.
That's what it was. Gotcha. You're like, I know the dates, the hours, the minutes. Yeah. So coming out of that, like, what specifically did you look back on in regards to your sales process, the way you identified clients, good fit, bad fit? Like what specifically has changed since then?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. As far as just specific things that have changed, so I went through the boot camp with David Winehouse and Dan Tyre. Awesome stuff. But it's not really that awesome unless you actually do what the boot camp trains you to do. You know? And if you don't do that, it's not going to be successful.
Follow the steps.
Totally. Yeah. So, we kind of tweaked that into our own style, but really we didn't have like a great sales process, to be completely honest and transparent about. Like we just didn't have one. We'd get on the phone with a client, we would dive through connect call, discovery call, all the stuff down to strategy, and then they'd ask for a proposal. So it's honestly probably pretty standard for a lot of agencies, but that doesn't leave any time for really like vetting out and like almost like the two-way interview of like, hey, are they going to be the right fit for us? And do they make enough money to even pay us? Or are they going to bail because they're a startup and we didn't really understand that, or or whatever the situation is. So we had to kind of like go, hey, what is our process and how are we going to follow it? And I wish I could say, a year and a half later that we've totally figured out, but man, we're a lot further along in that. And so we started developing playbooks and, actual specific, I like to talk and I like to learn about clients and I like to strategize. And so my mind wants to like dive into that on call one. So it's been a discipline for me as handling all of our sales. Totally.
Yeah. Pull back.
Yeah. Pull back and stick to the script, not robotic, but stick to the script enough to where, hey, we've got like a natural lead into what that next call is, and then next call.
It's interesting, right? Because the way you've kind of outlined it, okay, you prospect, then you connect, then you discover, dive into strategy, whatever it is. I would say for the majority of agencies, that might be considered a sales process. Sure. But you're saying, well, we actually didn't have a defined sales process. So my question, I guess, is like, what's the distinction? Is it having steps, or to your point, is it just making sure you attach scripts to steps and sticking to those scripts? Like, is there any additional distinction there that you would say? Yeah,
I mean, I think it's like a combination, right? It's like the scripts and the questions you're going to ask in each of the different phases, and so ours, great, this is a HubSpot deal where we've got deal stages that are mapped out that are in correlation with each of our steps, and then we've got playbooks that you attach to each of them. We have specific questions that kind of lead to the next thing and the next thing. And so I would say it's like a combination of like sticking to those steps and sticking to those questions, and so that we'll make sure that we're checking those boxes next to each of those different sets of questions for each of the different phases. And and we're not if a client wants to jump to the end and they've given enough information, great, we're not going to run 5 phone calls, we're going to run 2 or whatever. But for the most part, we're trying to like stick to those kind of scripts and those playbooks and those questions that are naturally leading from one thing to the next. And that's been really a big deal for us because it's helped us also stay really organized. Most of the time, we've got a sales process. Okay, cool. There's prospect, 3 or 4 or whatever that name of them is. Well, where are they at? Oh, they're somewhere in the middle. That's not helpful.
If there's gray areas, it means there's no process.
Yes. And so we've tried really hard to kind of figure that out. And, again, we're constantly learning it and evolving it and figuring it out. But yeah, that's kind of our mix as far as kind of the process we run. So.
What would you say is the most impactful or important question that you ask now to clients that you didn't ask in the old processless sales process?
Yeah, that's a great question. A single question. I feel like it's like just sticking to a question like theme and maybe asking like if
or like piece of information that you're trying to extract.
It's like that piece of information and it's like, what is the problem you're trying to solve? Like what, as a client that's coming to us, what are you actually trying to solve for? Because sometimes it's, I'm ready to run an email campaign, I need a new website redesign, or I need a whatever. It's like, no, but really know what is the problem that you're trying to figure out in that, and it's different for everybody. But so we push really hard to figure that out because then we know and we've got something to like connect back to, even 6 months into the agreement or 60 days in the agreement, whatever. And so we push for that a lot harder than we used to. I think we used to just kind of go, they came to us for a redesign. Awesome, let's do it.
Yeah. Oh, we do that stuff.
Yeah, totally. And sure, there's some clients that's really the extent of it. But there's others that, it's like we're talking to one right now where they want lead generation. You're like, well, okay, so what does that mean to you? What are you, what kind of leads? Like how many leads? Just like you're diving in further into that topic so that you understand how to build a strategy around it and how to then have connect points back to it.
Sounds like you're just trying to tie whatever activities they're looking for you to do to like a business objective that's meaningful, right? Exactly. Is that fair to say?
Yeah. So, I mean, it is a lot more around business objectives and a lot less around marketing activities and tactics and campaigns and that kind of stuff. And a lot of that's because the business owner, the marketer, the salesperson, whoever we're talking to in the organization, they get the business objective because that's usually coming down from high above, their supervisors, or it's like something they've come up with. They don't necessarily know the best way to execute it.
Sure.
Because they're not doing it every day
right,
or day in and day out, hour in and hour And so that's where it's like super helpful to reverse engineer kind of, hey, what's the actual problem you're trying to solve? And then let us help you figure out what the tactic is to get there, which is kind of, I would say we focus on that a ton. And then we stick to like, everybody asks, hey, what's your budget? And then I pry pretty hard for that. It's like, well, we don't have one, we're trying to figure it out. And I go, great. So if I came to you and said it's going to be, $10,000 a month, like what would your reaction to that be? Oh my gosh, that's too high. Or yeah, that's
so you do have a budget.
So you do have a budget, yeah. And then I'm going to go down that route. And I'm really, I'm pretty stiff, you can obviously tell, but like I'm really soft about it as far as just trying to I'm just fishing a little bit to kind of go, hey, what is the reality of what they're willing to pay for? And it's not so I can go top of the budget and get more money from them, but it is to kind of go, if they're expecting a website redesign for $500, then it's great. This is probably
it's part of the qualification process.
Yeah,
there has to be alignment around the cost and the value of the.
Whereas in the old day, we would have just gone, hey, what's your budget? We don't really have one. Oh, okay, cool.
And that was it. And then we'll just come to the table with a proposal.
Exactly. And then you spent however many hours on that process, and they just say, well, we were expecting to pay $500, and you just bid a $15,000 project.
Right, and you wasted all that time.
Totally. Yeah. And so we're trying to kind of go through that like connect call process. And I ask those questions early on, and I think it's fair to ask them. And most people appreciate it when you do kind of spell it out a little bit more. And some people bail because it's too high at the end, even though they said it was at the beginning. You can't control that. But
so you mentioned, so one of the key issues, right, of that month, February to March, I don't remember the dates, but okay, we're probably working with the wrong fit client. So once you put more like work and shape and like adherence to a sales process, what percentage of clients that we're navigating through, or the total amount, like what did the intentional turn away or transition out? Like how did that increase? Was it a large amount of clients? Like how many people did you actually begin filtering out of your sales process with kind of these new guardrails in place?
Honestly, I bet it's probably like 40 to 50% over the last year. And I think a lot of it's just because we just ask different questions up front, and and it's not necessarily, I guess I shouldn't say different questions, it's more of like we're just digging a little bit further. And so then they give us their actual answer, and we're going to tell you if we're not the right fit, and we're not going to discount our services, because that's just a real rough way to start a retainer with a client. And so it's like we'll subtract things. Well, we really want that. Well, okay, well, it's going to cost this much. Well, we can't pay that much. Okay, well, we might not be the right fit to move forward with, and you just kind of have those conversations. So I think we are more sensitive to like gut feeling too. We do everything, so our agency is 100% remote. So we do everything with like video meetings. So if a prospect wants to do a long-term engagement and they will not show themselves on video, it might not be a right fit. So that's like a red flag that we've got on our kind of filter of red flags that we probably don't want to work with you because of that. And it's like a little thing, but at the same time, like that's just how we function. And so if you're not going to function that way and you don't fit with us, then we're probably not the right partnership.
It's not good or bad. It's just that's totally. This is how it's going to work.
Right. Yeah. So we have a list of those things that we try to go through. So I'd say 40 to 50% of people that we kind of turn away. The other percentage, we're going to like go down the road a little bit or all the way, depending on how we go. So
just to level set, who owns sales, or how many people are involved in sales for your agency?
Yeah, so I do all of our sales right now, and we're kind of shifting really over the last like 2 months, shifting into bringing like strategists into that process, bringing designers into that process, just as we've kind of gone through a connect call, part of a discovery scenario, and then we're bringing people in. And a lot of it honestly has been to give the clients, obviously they get a better understanding of what we do and they ask better questions and stuff, but a lot of it's to give clients like, hey, it's not just the Tyler show. That's the only guy you see, and you see some other people on the website, which is great, but there's more people in the mix, and there's going to be a lot better people than I am at design or development or whatever in the mix. And so we're trying to start bringing in more like, I'm not going to call it team sales, but it's more like just bringing in more
fresh perspectives.
Yeah, totally. And then it makes the job from my side easier because I've got more brains around like, how are we strategizing this? What do we do? Got any ideas? Like that kind of stuff.
Okay. It sounds early in that process, but have there been any lessons learned versus stick to the script, stick to the sales process, holding yourself accountable, but now you're going to have to hold a team accountable. Yeah. Any lessons learned so far in like training them on the process and like training them to stick to the process?
I would say at this point, I still tee everybody up. So it's not, I'm still owning that whole relationship with the client on top of it. We've onboarded a couple clients in the last month and a half. And right now we're kind of doing, I'm selling and then a strategist comes in or a team member comes in, and then that person will stick with the client for like the first 90 days, as well as like a strategist or like a project manager that they're going to like run with for a long time comes into it. So it's like a lot smoother of a transition. we didn't have the best process for that transition ironed out on day one, as far as this is what happens, this is the expectation that we have from like an agency perspective, as well as what the client would have. So I'd say the first couple that we did weren't crashes and burns. Like, we're still working with them.
Yeah.
There's a lot we learned from it.
Yeah, there's some friction you can remove
totally,
from
right.
it. Got it.
Yeah. So I think all that being said, we have gone a lot more into building out process for everything. So it's not just like shoot from the hip and, this client has this size of retainer, so these are the things that, let's just do that. Well, 6 months into a retainer, you're not doing that anymore. You're barely touching it because you're only working on the stuff that's, moving or that you're paying attention to or that's up front, So we've worked a lot on just developing process, documenting everything.
Got it.
Yeah.
Hard pivot from sales. Now I think the other half of kind of your battle plan, right? The recovery plan was service delivery. And I think like changing the way you delivered services, driven results for your clients. So what were the big takeaways? What did you focus on? What were the big boulders that you had to fix or crack through?
Yeah, that's a good question. Honestly, it was a team dynamic and who was servicing it. That was the biggest challenge. And I think that a lot of people have gone the like 1099 or contractor route, or like subbing it out to other agencies and stuff. I think the pitfall or the error that we made was like abdicating that authority. So it's like that just, it's like we are abdicating the ownership of it. It's like we were giving it away to another agency but expecting them to have that same level of ownership that we did with the client ain't gonna happen.
Right.
It just doesn't work that way. And so then like, level of like attention to the client, and they weren't interacting with the clients necessarily, but they were not aware of like the urgency of getting something done, or hours required, or the expectation, the excellence we wanted.
It was their timeline, not yours.
Totally, absolutely. Yeah. And then we were then using like their project management tool or something. And so we were just all spread around, And so we now don't like everything. If you're going to work with us, you're working in our project management, our whole environment and ecosystem. You're working in that, or you're not working with us. Whether you're a partner that we're having that's helping us do some development or something, or you're a contractor or you're an employee, you have to work in that environment or it doesn't work. So I'd say like that piece was a huge learning lesson, as far as just like abdicating, just like not really paying attention to, but just passing off that responsibility. And so we can't pass that off any longer, obviously. So that was a big piece, and then we've pivoted from that. So,
what does the partnerships with contractors, other agencies, like what does it look like now? Yeah. Now that you require them to come into your systems?
Yeah. We don't do a whole lot where we like sub out to other agencies any longer. We used to do that a fair amount, and some people do. It works great. We haven't had a great track record with it. It's probably our fault, not theirs. But so I'd say as far as just what it looks like now, our expectations with working with other contractors, we're converting most of those contractors into full-time employees, and so they're 100% working on our business, our clients, our books of business, and really their books of business that they're managing. And so, that has been the biggest pivot over the last, in the last 6 to 8 months, has just been bringing people on board and not relying nearly as heavily on contractors. So, example, we used to format all of our development, and now we've got a contractor that's managing a lot of the development, and then they're, working with outside resources, and we're trying to hire them right now. So we're trying to bring them on full time. And that's just because we want somebody internally that's handling it, that's owning that, makes our team better, the delivery's going to be better, clients going to be more satisfied. So it's like all a huge win across the board for that. So
what's the biggest difference between hiring a contractor that you've worked with previously, trying to convince them to come full time, versus a candidate that you found that you're bringing in first time from just a completely other organization? What's the biggest difference?
Totally. I would say comfort level around, if I've done, 5 projects with you already, we already understand how each other work.
Speed of delivery,
and I know what your quality work is. It's, there's no guessing. Even though in some of our interview and hiring process, we've got tests kind of involved and situational stuff that they're running through, but it's not the same because I haven't worked with them. So I'd say that's the biggest difference. Is it's easier to bring somebody on that's done a couple projects with you in the contractor role. Doesn't mean that that's what we do entirely, but that's easier probably because
you've already qualified their level of work, their ability, their scope.
They're already on the inner circle. They're part of the fam.
Yeah. You mentioned we've talked about your systems a couple times. Do you want to give a plug to your project management tool? Like, what tools seem to work really well for you? Yeah. What systems do you lean on pretty heavily? Anything in particular?
Yeah, so our kind of top foundational...
HubSpot Academy.
Yeah, clearly. Yeah, right. HubSpot, obviously, the HubSpot CRM. Google Suites. We use all their tools, Slack, Asana, and all of those kind of talk together. That's kind of our battle suite, I suppose.
Sweet.
But, yeah.
So I have one final question for you, but before we even get there, is there anything else, lessons learned? We talked a little bit about sales. We talked a little bit about service.
Yeah.
As you kind of navigated and made the recovery plan, any other lessons learned that I wasn't able to articulate in a question?
Yeah, that's good. Good one. A lot of lessons. One of the other things that I've hit on when I talk to other people about this and our kind of recovery was software. And so every agency you talk to, for the most part, has a fairly significant budget towards software. So they're demoing new products, they're trying new things, they've been talked into buying stuff that they shouldn't have bought, whatever it is. And so they'll spend thousands of dollars a month, tens of thousands of dollars a month on software tools. And what we've learned, so we did that, and I would say wasted a lot of money and expected tools to kind of solve our problems. And so we've kind of changed to we don't really bring any tools on that we don't have like a process we're trying to solve for, or an existing tool in place that this one might be better than. And so we brainstorm and figure out like how do we become better or become more efficient, and then so we can go out and like hire that software to make us better at that process or that system that we're trying to implement. I just feel like there's a lot of money that's wasted in software, and that's.
Were you on the wrong side of that coin at the beginning?
Yeah. We wasted a lot of money on a project management tool that we kind of expected to like, oh, this is going to make us so much better. No, it's not, because it didn't come with. There's no like project manager it comes with that does this process, and so. It's a good example. Project management's a great example because there's so many project management tools out there, and they all have like their different tint and their different style. And like some people, it's like Scrum and Agile. Well, great. There's a specific tool set that's great for that. Other people are points based. Well, there's our specific tools for that. Other people are somewhere in between hours, whatever. And so it's great to know what your process or your system is, or your management style or your project management style, and then find the tool that fits for that. Versus like Jira's great, like let's do it. Well, it sucks if you're not running Agile Scrum. It's clunky and doesn't work that great. But if you're running like that type of business, then it's awesome. And so it's kind of, again, back to figuring out what's your style, process you're trying to solve, and then hiring that software to do it.
Yeah, so develop process first, be intentional about which software is going to unlock or enable that process. Right. Don't just chase the shiny object or something like that.
Yeah, because most agencies that are wasting money on tools are buying the software and then they're having to like allocate man hours and resource to figure out how to use the software, and then now how do we integrate this?
And it might not even be the right tool to begin with.
Yeah, they would have no idea.
So. Final question for you. Ask this to every guest. Yeah. What's the weirdest part of agency life? Just the absolute weirdest. Some people go like weird anecdote. Some people have like just the aspect of the life in general.
Honestly, I feel like the weirdest part is customer conversations, and some are just hilarious. Some you get off the phone and you're just like, what did they just ask me to do? Or they're just, everybody's different, and like it's the people component that's always the weirdest. The questions you get, the people that think that their business is so unique, but you're like, dude, I've talked to 3 people in the last hour that are the exact same. Really, maybe they're using different words, but they're the same. So I think it's the people component, the client component. I think the people put on our team, like we've got a designer on our team, and I asked her, hey, what do you want to do in like 3 years or something? And I have no idea where that question goes in that, even in the interview process or whatever. And she's like, I really have had this dream of opening a tattoo parlor. And I'm like, that's awesome. I did not have any expectation you would say that. Like, I had no idea you were going to say, but that's like so far left field. So I just feel like the people aspect is like the weirdest, and that's probably like the dumbest answer out.
No, that fits the bill. That is absolutely just the range of personality types and people that you get to interact with and come across is just it's unlike any other. Yeah, awesome. Well, that's it. That's all I have for you. So I really appreciate you coming on. And that's it. That's been Agency Unfiltered. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Agency Unfiltered. If you like what you saw, heard, or read, make sure to subscribe to our playlist on YouTube, our podcast on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, or our newsletter on agencyunfiltered.com. Alongside episode launch notifications, the newsletter also comes with a ton of other helpful, strategically curated agency content from yours truly. And if you want to keep the conversation going or provide a counterpoint to this episode's discussion, tweet me at Kevin_Dunn. I'll see you again in 2 weeks, but in the meantime, keep it unfiltered and let's all grow.